So week 8 of the 2016 NFL season is pretty far back in the rearview mirror now, and I finally have gotten around to talk about the week that was, so let's dive right in. We had another week where there was another tie. Unfortunate thing about it was this week it was the Sunday morning London game featuring the Bengals and the Redskins, and it was honestly one of the best games of the week. It was a good way to actually start off a Sunday of football. And then the tie happened. How appropriate. You're in a soccer crazy country like England. So, of course, a big featured game ends in a tie, and people are supposed to act like they're happy about that. That's what soccer does. That is the life of a soccer fan. And, of course, now the NFL, being in Europe, decides to give them a fucking soccer finish. I don't know. The NFL's got to do something about these ties. I realize they don't happen that often, but there has to be some type of better option in place. I don't know if it's utilizing the college rule of overtime, um, going until somebody scores, even if that means playing an extra 30 or 45 minutes of extra time, making basically penalty kicks and having it, if you go 15 minutes of overtime and nobody scores or nobody's, then it comes down to a sudden death kickoff. I don't know. I'm not saying any of those options are any good, but the NFL does need to look at this and they need to do something about it. Their product on the field is bad enough right now as it is. That's why some people are being turned off from it. The last thing you need to do is tell people, hey, why don't you spend 3 to 4 hours watching our product, watching your team playing a game, and then nobody wins, nobody loses, and it was a complete waste of fucking time. So one thing you don't want to make your audience, your customers feel like they're doing is wasting their time consuming your product. And when you get to that point in having ties and you keep having ties, you're going to keep having that problem. Just the way it is. It's also a bad week for NFC playoff contenders like Seattle, Minnesota, Green Bay, Arizona. They all lost. The losses for Seattle and Minnesota in particular were really, really bad. You should talk about the Seahawks losing to the Saints and the Vikings, for God's sakes, losing to the Chicago Bears on Monday night. Those are not losses that championship caliber teams should be having. They just shouldn't. Where the Patriots are dominating the Buffalo Bills on the road, you got the Vikings and the Seahawks losing to the Bears and the Saints, respectively. Wow. So let's look at the week's winners and losers. Tennessee's 4-4. They're in the mix in the AFC South. They really kicked off the fire Gus Bradley bandwagon in Jacksonville. But, you look at the Titans. You've got a young franchise quarterback. You've got a solid running game. This is a team that has a chance to make the playoffs in that crappy division. Why not? They're better positioned than the Colts are. That's for damn sure. The Oakland Raiders, another road win. They're 6-2. They're in first place in the AFC West, heading into a big Sunday night matchup against the Broncos. The Raiders got to be feeling really good about themselves, and frankly, it's good to see the Raiders be relevant again in the National Football League. The New England Patriots beating Buffalo in that dominant fashion that they did, going to 7-1. Now you're talking about a New England team that is 3 games up on anybody in the AFC East. They pretty much finished off the division already, and now they can focus on bigger things like going out and getting home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the AFC, which they seem destined to be able to get at this point in time. Carolina coming back from their bye week and beating Arizona, that was a good win. That was potentially a season-saving win for Carolina. In terms of the losers, Detroit had an opportunity with Green Bay losing, Minnesota losing. They were facing a team with a bad offense and a crappy quarterback in Brock Osweiler with the Houston Texans. Detroit could have made up a little bit of ground on Green Bay and Minnesota, entered themselves into the mix of being contenders in that division. And then they proceeded to lose to the Houston Texans and kept the distance the same. So they didn't strike and take advantage when they needed to. The Seattle Seahawks, same thing. You have the Cardinals lose. The Seahawks are sitting there. You win, and you've created another game of separation between yourselves and the Cardinals. And you go out and you lose to a bad team like the Saints. You just championship teams should not be doing that type of stuff. Indianapolis lost big to the Chiefs at home, and a lot of that was done with the arm of Nick Foles. It wasn't even done with Alex Smith. The Colts are terrible. No wonder if Colts fans are desperate for when Pagano and Grigson both get fired. I want to talk a little bit about candidates for major awards right now. I'm going to talk about Coach of the Year and MVP races, basically almost halfway through the season. I'll go 3, 2, 1 for each of them. Coach of the Year, I'll go with Jack Del Rio at number 3. The Raiders are 6-2. The Raiders are relevant. Frankly, if the Raiders' defense was worth a shit, I might have Del Rio number 1 on this list. But for now, he's riding a lot on the strength of Derek Carr and that high-powered Raiders offense. I'll keep him at number 3. But Del Rio, in general, has done a really good job. And There's been a culture change in Oakland, and it's good to see. Number 2, Bill Belichick. A lot of people are going to have him as number 1 and a runaway number 1, and I get it. So maybe you're surprised I have him at number 2, but I have him at number 2, and that's no slight. I mean, the Patriots are 7-1. They went 3-1 without their franchise Hall of Fame, arguably best ever quarterback in history, Tom Brady. They didn't have Gronk healthy the first few weeks of the season. And there they are, the Patriots again in the mix. There's something to be said about consistency and consistency of dominance. And it speaks to the infrastructure put in place by Bill Belichick, the head coach and the maestro of what they do up there at Foxborough. Just incredible stuff. My coach of the year right now has to be Jason Garrett, though. You lose Tony Romo in the preseason. You've really never had Des Bryant 100% healthy. And here are the Dallas Cowboys behind a rookie fourth-round pick quarterback and a rookie running back leading the way on offense. They're 6-1. If the season ended right now, the Cowboys, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yes, they would be. They would be the team that would have home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. And the Cowboys' defense is not great. It's not like they have a ton of explosive weapons on offense. You know, that offensive line is pretty good, but they're not the best ever. You know, Garrett's done a really good job, and he probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And he most certainly, I don't think, is getting the credit he deserves right now. So for that and that reason alone, I am, you know, for some of you, it'll make you vomit because I'm giving an award to somebody involved with the Cowboys. But I think Jason Garrett has a case. I really, really do. And, you know, they're leading what is actually a pretty strong division in the NFC East because the Giants, the Redskins, the Eagles are all mixed. None of them are really scrubby slouch teams. You know, there are much worse divisions out there. See, the AFC South is one example. In terms of the MVP race, number 3, I'll go Ezekiel Elliott. You know, some of you are going to say, well, he's got that offensive line in front of him to block for him. He's got Dak Prescott, and he's got this, and he's got that. Well, you could say that about Matt Ryan. He's got Julio Jones. You could say that about Derek Carr. He's got Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree. You could say that about Tom Brady. He's got Rob Gronkowski and Martellus Bennett and Julian Edelman and LeGarrette Blount in the running game. I mean, you know, for a lot of these guys, yeah, in order to be in that MVP position, they're going to have help and talent around them to help get the most out of them. But it doesn't take away from the fact that in 7 games, Ezekiel Elliott has 799 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. He's on a pace where he could really legitimately challenge Eric Dickerson's rookie rushing record, and that's impressive stuff. The Cowboys would have home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs right now. Ezekiel Elliott, the 4th overall pick out of Ohio State, has been a major part of it. He's got to be in the mix right now. Number 2, I'll go with Matt Ryan. The Falcons now, especially after Thursday night, what they did to the Buccaneers, are sitting at 6-3. Matt Ryan's thrown for almost 300 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, over 4 interceptions. And some of you will point to, well, he has Julio Jones. But Julio Jones has had some big games and several games where he's been pretty much a decoy and a non-factor. He's gotten other guys like Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman involved in the passing game out of the backfield, and other guys like Mohamed Sanu and Jacob Tamme. I mean, Matt Ryan's having easily, to me, the best year of his career for a guy that many people were starting to think could be washed up and it might be time to move on from him. He's having a banner season, the best season of his career, and the Falcons' record is reflecting that. They're in playoff position right now. They're clearly the team to beat in their division. But number 1, I got to go with Derek Carr. How could you not? The Raiders are relevant again. They won yet another road game this past Sunday in overtime over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Talking about a Raiders team at 6-2. Derek Carr is on pace to throw for 4,600 yards. He has 17 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. And it's not just about numbers alone, but the numbers are clearly there. The team's record's also there. But it's the force of will of his leadership and how the team is jumping on his back, and he's taking them where they need to go. And he's making big, key, clutch plays in big-time performance spots and situations. I think right now the hands-down winner of the MVP award, no diss to anybody else, has to be Derek Carr. You're welcome to tell me who you think right now would be the coach of the year and the MVP in the National Football League and your winners and losers from week number 8. I'll be curious to see what your answers are.